Lights, camera, action, let the show begin. Beverly Digital Network, now we locked in. Double BD and yeah, we live again. Double BD.
Attention, all of my elevated content seekers. We Believe Digital is designed to inspire. Whether it's music, news, entertainment, We Believe Digital has the content that you don't want to miss. We're bringing you the best in news, entertainment, sports, inspiration, and so much more. Not only are we designed to inspire, but you can advertise with us and reach your target audience now. Got something that you believe in? Well, we believe in you, and we're offering you the opportunity to become a podcaster at We Believe Digital Studios. To become a Want to know more? You can contact us at www.webelievedigital.com. And while you're at it, be sure to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Roku at We Believe Digital.
And welcome to Sock and Doc, sometimes Doc and Sock. We'll get it straight as we go along. You viewing us from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. Mississippi, my hometown. I call it a town because most people in Mississippi know one another. You know, at one time, there were more African Americans in Mississippi than there were Europeans. And my friend, my co-host today says that slavery could have been ended on the day that the slaves wanted to end it, if they just had enough courage to get up and revolt. I think that's probably an overstatement because there was something called guns, and slaves didn't have access to those, just like the American Indian, the Native Americans didn't have access to those. And now you can hardly find an Indian, but you can find an African American anywhere you look throughout the entire state of Mississippi. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, then share this program with your friends and family. Send us stars. Our network is growing every day, and we need your support. If you're watching us on YouTube, then share this program with your friends and your family. Subscribe to the program. We need your help. Now, we're being seen all over the world in over 139 different countries. So if you're watching us in Vietnam, welcome. We appreciate your support and you viewing this show. Doc, we get a lot of visitors out of Germany and other places like that. How have you been, sir?
I've been doing well, sir. Doing great.
Good. I know we're coming off of Father's Day, and I want to talk about it just a little bit more because, you know, back in the day, men were men. They were a little bit different than they are today. And I know that your father is still with us.
Correct.
And how is he doing?
Well, he's doing fairly well. He's not as strong as he's been during the last 15 days. He's gotten a little weaker, but he's still standing tall as he sits in the chair.
Now, Doc, how old is your dad?
He's 102 years old.
102 years old. That's amazing. What a privilege it is to have had him with you that long. And hopefully you'll have him for many more years to come.
Well, I think we probably have him another 8 years. He wants to live to be 110. So now if he is been saying that for a while, he'll probably do 2 or 3 more.
Wonderful. And Doc, you and I are getting on up in age as well. And I recall as a boy, just, walking around, following my father everywhere he went. I would slip and hide on the back seat of the car when he was getting ready to drive somewhere. And he didn't know I was in the car until he was too far gone to turn around. But I followed the man everywhere he went. I thought that he hung the stars and the moon in the sky. He was that kind of guy to me, Doc. And I don't think the children understand, and I don't think families understand the real importance of a father figure in the home.
Well, they don't. So let me tell you something. As you know, we had a different situation going on. Most of the people I knew back in the old days had fathers, but most of the black young men and women today don't have fathers. They have dads that never lived in a house. Many times they don't know the fathers. And since the mothers are so young, especially today, they don't even know the mother as the mother. They live with the grandparents and great grandparents. And that's why you have so many youth, poor whites and poor blacks, that's catching so much hell today because they don't have that upbringing with that father figure in the house. You know, sometimes it's Uncle John, granddad, but you need that father figure one way or the other.
When you were coming up, did your father have to chastise you at all?
Well, he was very liberal with that switch and that belt and other things. He had a good rule that you listen to me. I'm going to tell you one time, boy. And if you don't do it, I got something for you.
Was the word boy universal in our culture?
Well, in that private situation, yes.
Yeah.
But he was smart enough to be nice in public, but he'd tear you up in private.
Oh, yeah.
And that was good. I enjoy that today when I think about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would probably be in prison right now if I didn't have that good, strong upbringing.
Well, now, you know, most people in the generation before us, they ran away from home. You know, now kids don't leave home.
Well, that's the parents' fault.
Well, why is that?
Well, the parents are weak. Most of them don't have the credentials they need to support themselves. They have trained their sons and daughters to be just like them, and all of them stay around with each other so they can flag each other and borrow money from each other, live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, use the same car. And many of them now are so worthless, they don't even want to work at Walmart.
Wow, that's a good word there, but we'll come back to that. Doc, let's get into the heart of the program. Now, I was watching a documentary the other day about the civil rights that were murdered in Philadelphia, Mississippi. You know, in Mississippi, we have some difficult times. We've had a difficult past, but apparently the Jews played a tremendous role in helping Black folks gain the right to vote. And two of the young Jews were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi in the early 60s, 1962 and 1964, something like that. And so is Mississippi ever going to be able to shake its past?
Never. Mississippi is concentrating on the old rule and the old way. They will never change from being one of the top racist states in the history of the world. Their grandparents, their old uncles, all their old nephews, their cousins, all were trained to be racist. And I'm not talking about all of them now. I'm just talking about 95% of them. There are some real good non-racist white folks. I don't know many, but most of those that I know were born racist, and they still are today. And nothing wrong with that, because that's their culture, and they think it's the way to go. And they got this from the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution, as you know, and I've been saying this for years, was and is a racist document. It said basically that this new world is going to be controlled by white men that own property. They're the only people that could vote. And I've been saying this for years. They still say we're not going to have representative democracy in America, but they always pretend that they have democracy. And right now, it only takes 538 individuals to elect the president of the United States.
Well, I thought there were 400 million people in America.
Well, those numbers are, the popular vote is insignificant. The so-called, your founding fathers said that we don't believe in popular anything. We have the Constitution written just the way we want it, where we are going to be in control, and our mothers, grandparents, and aunts and sisters are going to be subservient to us, and we are going to determine their destiny from their birth to their death.
Well, Doc, I was listening to a speech that Frederick Douglass gave, and he said that the Constitution was a fine doctrine. It just wasn't being lived up to. He thought the Constitution itself could have worked for everybody if we had lived up to what it said. And then, of course, we had the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments, and to try and deal with some issues that we were having, not being allowed to vote, not even being a first-class citizen. But can the document, as it's been amended, now be a document that could work for African Americans as well as other races?
No, it cannot.
Even after amendments?
Even after the amendments, because the amendments were put in the Constitution because of pressure from the Republicans and others and the so-called liberals. They never intended to have voting rights for Black people and other minorities. They never wanted to recognize the Black man as a human being in America. They never wanted to recognize the so-called Indian or the Native American as a human being and a citizen. And those two groups are still excluded virtually in positions of non-responsibility, even when they have the title. Whenever you get a group of Black politicians in any state, any city where they control the finances, the governor or the legislature will figure out a way, especially in the southern area, to take that power away from them and do it in the courts of law on the local, state, and national level.
Now, Doc, you and I have decided to stay in Mississippi.
That's right.
By choice. I mean, I left Mississippi upon graduating from Alcorn State College back in '68. I graduated in May. I was in California in June. I didn't waste any time. But something drew me back here, Doc. And I came back in 1973, and I've been back ever since. Was born in Mississippi. What is it that makes us who understand Mississippi's history as well as we do, Mississippi today as well as we do, but yet we remain?
Well, it's very simple. Now, personally, I told you before the reason I returned to the state of Mississippi, because as a non-citizen, when I was born, a non-legal citizen, I couldn't register to vote, didn't vote. And before I was able to do so, I ended up drafted and went to Vietnam. And I've been telling this story for years. When I left here to fight for the so-called democracy over there in the eastern part of the world, I couldn't vote. I was in the process of getting registered, but they shipped us out before I could get registered. And then I couldn't do it in person. We had to fill out an application in the Masonic Temple there on Lynch Street, put it in a box, and the NAACP and others with the National Guard, not National Guard, the federal agents were supposed to take it to the courthouse down in Jackson. But by that time, when that happened, I was in Vietnam, so-called fighting for this fake democracy that they had been brainwashing us with. And I said then, I'm going to one day get back to Mississippi and I'm going to vote. It took about 14 years for me to finally get back after a while, but I've been back ever since for many years, and I will intend to die in the great state of Mississippi. I'm not leaving anymore.
Well, is Mississippi worth fighting for?
Well, it is if you come up with some coalitions and pool resources and stop looking for these national figures like Al Sharpton and Trump, the lawyer, and others to come down here and rip you off with your money. My teaching has been that if you want to get somewhere in life and determine your destiny from birth to death, you have to use your own people where you are. Use the resources you have. Put together coalitions. Put together plans of operation. And look out for your economic training, your politics, your religion, your leadership, and most certainly that education and potential training that would be different from the old style. Right now, it's all about credentials. It's not about those BS and doctorate degrees and all of that. They are mostly worthless if you get them in the wrong area, like psychology or social work. A BS in social work or psychology, totally worthless. You could, if you, that's all you're going to do and not get a master's and get a certification in it. When you finish high school, you ought to just go on and get you a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, because that's where you'll probably end up anyway.
Doc, we clearly, as elders, have to change what we see as wrong for those that come after us. I think our generation, our parents' generation, probably held the line harder and greater than any other generation. I think they gave us opportunities that they didn't have, and they wanted us to go to school, and they fought for integration, and then they fought for those kinds of things that they believed would give us a better chance at having a greater quality of life than they had back on the farm. And so that generation did its part. Now, we come along and we're the beneficiaries of that hard work. We could vote in 1964. I guess I was just entering high school or just finishing high school. And so I could vote and I could see those things working, and I had white instructors, and I saw a few white people, and I didn't suffer like my parents did in terms of race relations or economic deprivation or anything like that, because I left as soon as I got educated. But this generation that we have now, Doc, they sell their differences in the streets. They don't believe in church and religion. When you go to church on Sunday morning, you don't see them. They have a different way of looking at things and maybe a different strategy about bringing about change. What do you think of the generation of today?
Well, the generation of today, Sock, has been misguided by the same people you're talking about. You're talking about your father and yourself. Now, our generation didn't raise our children with that strict code of conduct. We allowed them to believe that they're supposed to go to college, get a 4-year degree in something. And then at the same time, they couldn't find a job with it. Today, it ought to be different. These young parents and others should be telling their children, you need to finish high school any way you can and look at the following. Get some credentials in some kind of automated type area, welding, truck driving, automation, robotics, all kinds of things, and then start your own business when you work for others 5 or 6 years, and then you'll be able to be independent economically. If you have enough sense to pool your resources and build coalitions with people similar to what you are doing. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to make the same mistake your so-called leaders did in the 1960s when they say we're going to practice and promote and die for integration. And I told you before, that's the worst thing ever happened to Black folks after slavery, that doggone integration. It has never done anybody any good other than some of you all in the top 10%, and you were one of them. You were one of the top 10% of the Blacks that had a father and mother that owned their own land. They sent you to college. You know, Black folks didn't go to college and finish during the time you were coming along. Very few. A lot of them started. Then you were able to go and get you a good job somewhere as a salesperson because you were mulattoized. You know that. And you just got fortunate. But that 90% of the people still been catching hell and going to continue to do that until they decided to change their style and start working and trying to do something to take care of their future generation.
Marcus Garvey said, that you can't be mulattoized. He says that first you have to have allegiance to your God, to your family, and to your race. You can't, regardless to your skin color And regardless to your mulattoization, as you put it, you still have to have allegiance to those three things. And then you won't be conflicted and you won't be compromised.
Well, I can agree with most of that. He's right. And Garvey couldn't talk about being a mulatto. He was 100% black, as you know.
Yeah.
He couldn't pass to be a mulatto, so naturally he was smart enough not to say that. He put his emphasis on black. He was a very great man, had some great theories and ideas. He made more progress than any one black man in the world, far as I know. I've read his books, looked at what he did in America, in the Caribbean, and other areas. That man had he was more popular than the Ku Klux Klan. He had parades in New York and other places with thousands of people. Thousands had a ship line to ship products all over the world. But they fixed him up real nice and put him in prison because he was making too much progress.
And he advocated separation. He thought blacks should go back to Liberia, I believe.
That's right.
And so
But now white folks don't want that to happen.
Oh, I thought they wanted blacks to leave.
No, they never did. They wanted a few.
Well, the president right now, all of the Haitians are being told that they got to get out of here.
Of course.
So white folk want black folks to leave.
Well, they're going to be calling these black folks back. Once they take advantage of these Hispanics that can come over here, can't speak a word of English. In 2 weeks, they are doing all kinds of work, driving machines, doing roofing and air conditioning, building homes and doing all kinds of things. And when they get sent home, they're going to be begging black people to come back to America. Those few they sent away to Haiti and in the Caribbean area, they're going to be begging them to come back so they can do the work. You're not going to find these white folks and their children out there picking peas and beans in California and other places that the Hispanics and Mexicans are doing now, and some of the other Caribbean ethnic groups. They're not going to do it. So they're going to have to call blacks back from anywhere they can find them to come back on those visas to pick those berries and peaches and oranges and other things.
I can agree with you that when President Trump wanted to get the immigration laws in California, be aggressive with deporting all of the undocumented folk there, he backed off of that position when he saw what was happening to the grapes and the tomatoes and the oranges, who was picking all of these fruits and things of that nature. He was going to destroy the economy if he got rid of all of the Hispanics that were in California. Now, I don't know if we have that many Hispanics in Mississippi.
We have quite a few, but most of them are underground, as you know. They are working in these factories and doing all kinds of things illegally. A lot of these managers of these what I call production units know they have illegals working for them. They pretend they don't. They allow them to bring these fake IDs and other things that proclaim that they are citizens, and they know they're not. And that's why the government raid them from time to time. But you don't ever hear those the government on a national level putting those factory owners in prison or fining them. They make a little noise, and in 2 or 3 months, forget it, those Hispanics come back and get those jobs in the chicken plants and other places and go on and do what they normally do. No one is punished but the Hispanic.
Well, I thought that on a show that we've had in the past, you indicated that that blacks had reached the position of being irrelevant, that the Hispanics had passed them by in the ability to influence politics and decisions, and that we were absolutely on the bottom wrong.
Well, we were and we are. Up until about 30 years ago, blacks were the number 2 population in America. Whites were first, blacks were second. Now blacks somewhere around 8 or 9. Hispanics supersede the blacks in population right now in America.
In America. It's something that's spooking Americans, and especially in the national elections. There's so much attention now to redistricting and gerrymandering and not allowing voters to have free access to the polls. no more mail-in ballots. Make sure that, you know, if you didn't receive it the day of the election, even though it was postmarked on that day, it still may not be counted, and those kind of things. So there is something going on that's got the country concerned.
Well, it is. And the fact is, if you want to be realistic about it, that is a move by the people in power to maintain power. So if you have votes being mailed in and you could use that vote, if it comes in late, if it's stamped for 2 weeks, get it done when a person in voting on the regular voting day, that candidate might not know whether he's won until 2 weeks. Now, he might be projected at 47% with another 200,000 absentee votes to count. In 3 days, he might be number 2. And just yesterday, he was number 1. Now, this is designed to control who is elected. No absentee ballots. And you have to have people thinking about, can I maintain the status quo? Too many Hispanics, too many blacks, too many Arabs and others are winning positions in America. Look at the so-called democratic socialists, those Asians and others. They're going to take over the Democrat Party.
The mayor of New York City.
And others. And they got 4 or 5 new ones now that just won Democratic socialist positions. And in a few years, they're going to be rising to the point where they're going to have thousands of those Democrat socialists in office. And the blacks going to have to toe to them if they want to get a piece of the pie. And you think they're going to be fair and equitable to black folks? Of course not. They'll give them a good position in community relations and put them in a back office somewhere in the basement. But those guys are going to stay in power and just throw out a few crumbs here, just like the people are doing that kept them out for years.
So Mississippi is most proud of the fact that you men can't compete in women's sports. They want to make certain that the original gender is applied regardless to whether or not you have transitioned into another gender.
Well, they should. If you're a male, you ought to play male sports. If you're a female, you ought to play female sports. Now, if you are transgender, they ought to start the 3rd league and have the transgender league and have 3 rounds. And if the transgender league is number 2, you go and play the male or the regular females and be the champion.
Your president, Barack Obama, that we admire tremendously, said that you ought to be able to love who you want to love.
Well, you ought to be able to love you want, but that ought to be a private matter. Your love life shouldn't be a public concern, in my opinion. You shouldn't be concerned about who you love. And if you love someone, you should be broadcasting it all over the world. So you just do what you're going to do and keep your mouth shut and live your life, work. And
it doesn't work that way anymore.
I know it doesn't.
Was back in the closet. Folk were in the closet now, but LBGTQ, I think that's the right acronym.
Well, they done added 4 more letters to it now,
well,
but that doesn't make no
they're
difference.
adding some more letters to it. I don't know what they stand for, but LBGTQ group now is pretty powerful and pretty influential. Well, maybe more so than blacks.
Of course. And that's because of this George Floyd deal, where they killed him in public. These so-called black lives supposed to matter. And those few women made millions of dollars. You probably sent them $200,000 or $300,000 with all that money you have. And they got rich, bought homes in Florida, California, got stocks and bonds, married each other, did all kinds of things. And now they have lost that credibility because some of them been investigated, they've audited. So that shift is going to be moving.
Doc, we're up against a commercial break, but we're going to come back and deal with some issues. One, the relevancy of the church and religion in this struggle for equal rights and economic opportunities, the role that the church has played. And when we're going to come back, I was watching this documentary on the civil rights There was civil rights fighters that were brutally murdered in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And it showed a picture of the Klan in the church. And the church was filled with nothing but Klansmen. And they were praying to God. And I asked myself, are they praying to a different God than the one that I pray to?
No, they're praying to the same one. God allows any and everything to happen that man can come up with. He approves it. And we'll talk about that later.
Doc, we're going to come back to that subject. I want y'all to stay tuned with us, all our viewers all over the world. We're going to take a commercial break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into MDOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using SocratesGarrettENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
It's a great day to be working with the We Believe Digital Network.
Where it is.
Oh, hey, what's going on? How you doing? I wasn't expecting you to be here yet, but since you're here, hey, welcome to the We Believe Digital Network, where we make your dreams come true. We have a podcast station and a radio station that I'm about to show you. Come on inside. Okay, so now that you're inside, let me take you into the room where we make all the magic happen, right here in the We Believe Digital podcast and radio station studio itself. All right, then, y'all ready? Let's go.
Well, I don't know. I was watching the break.
Hey, welcome to the behind the scenes room of the We Believe Digital podcast, where all the podcast and engineering happens when we make all the magic happen. I am your engineer, head engineer, JB. How you doing? Hope all is well. Currently right now at the We Believe Digital Network, we have a deal going on for $99 an hour studio sessions. So don't miss out on this opportunity. Let us know if you want it. And reach out to your team and we'll build your dream. Have a good one. Oh, come on in. Hey, welcome to the behind the scenes of the We Believe Digital radio station, where everything We Believe Digital radio takes place. I am currently mixing and mastering a playlist for the radio station. Speaking of that, if you have any suggestions or even your own songs or podcasts or talk shows that you might want to be featured right here on the radio station, you can email us at webelieveplatforms@gmail.com.
You want to say something good over there?
Hey, feel like your voice needs to be heard? Ever wanted to be on your own podcast or even be a part of one? Guess what? You now can right here at the We Believe Digital Network, but we'll make it happen. You can catch us at this email, at this location, and this phone number.
And we're back. If you're watching us on Facebook, send us some stars, share this program, subscribe. YouTube, do the same thing. Over on Spotify, subscribe to the program. We Believe Digital Podcast is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. If you can't find us, it must be that you're not looking very hard, because we're here, and this is the kind of content that you're not going to get anywhere else in the world. So support this program so that Doc can continue to come on here and say the kinds of things that others dare not say. Let me say a little bit about this man. He's a business owner and a consultant. He's a director of state and federal programs. Doc is an ordained minister. He's a college administrator, a high school teacher, an insurance agent. He's been a police officer and a licensed private detective. He's a U.S. Army Vietnam veteran. His motto is one can change his life and status in 30, 60, or 90 days if he has a prioritized corrective action plan in 5 areas of activity and use it daily. You can contact him at 601 201 1957. Email Doc at clu369@gmail.com. Now, Doc, we're going to get right back into our program, but I know that you're one of the most sought after speakers in this area. How is that working?
Well, it's working well. I do have a little problem, though. Sometimes people get a little upset about the things that I say about religion, politics, economic development, education, and training, and they don't think things ought to change. You just can't maintain and do the same thing you did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, and 90s. Started in 2000 and up until the present, we're going to have to make an adjustment in everything we do and everything we were taught, and stop looking for others to save us because they are not. Why would the enemy of the human enemies of mankind and their associates do anything to help people that they've been discriminating against and keeping them in what I call hard times and hard situations forever? That is not going to happen. So we are going to have to determine our own destiny in those areas of activity that I mentioned, from birth to death, with their own leaders, by building these coalitions, using our funds, and training our leaders to be independent. And then get all the young people registered and vote after you teach them civics and the responsibility of elected officials and, of course, appointed officials. That's what's lacking in America today. No civics, no responsibility, and the requirements to be an elected official is very minimal. All you need to do is just be of a certain age, live in a district, no educational requirements, no economic requirements. Matter of fact, if you don't have any economic activity, that's a good job to get into. Try to get you a 4-year job with guaranteed 4 years of pay, or get in the ministry. No requirements other than just be a human being.
Doc, we're going to insist that our people learn civics and the importance of it. The struggle in Mississippi today, when the governor says he is going to call a special session to deal with redistricting, I don't know why Mississippi would need to redistrict anything when there's only one Black person in the whole House of Representatives and no Black in the Senate from Mississippi, just one, Congressman Benny Thompson from your hometown. And it appears that Mississippi wants to get rid of him.
Of course, they want to get rid of him.
Why?
They were trained to do that. They didn't want him there in the first place. The white Mississippians, the whites in Alabama, Georgia, New York City, Utah, and anywhere else don't want any Black representation. They want all the jobs. They all had them all, except 1 or 2 in Mount Bayou, up until the 1960s. They think that's where it's supposed to be. So with the new conservative approach, through our current and one of the several other presidents, Reagan and some of the others, they know now that the Supreme Court is going to give them basically anything they want, because the European Americans are getting afraid of the fact that their population is diminishing, and they're going to have to do 2 things. They're going to have to eliminate as many Blacks as they can from public office, appointed and elected, and find white folks to replace them with. So they're going to get them from South Africa. And the other Asians that are high white looking, they're going to be determined once again as Caucasians, like they used to.
So you think that there's a concerted effort to take things back to the way they were before 1960s?
Of course, that's the mind of the people that's in power. If you were in power, you would want to maintain your power, wouldn't you? I know I would.
I've never had power, so
That's what I'm talking
I
about.
don't know what that's like. You know, I've never had privilege. I do have emotions that when I see a white homeless person, I wonder how did they get like that?
Well, usually it's their fault because of they didn't do what they should have done. They started doing things that was, I call it abnormal from what they were actually trained to do. They were trained to get in school, learn just enough to read, write, and add two numbers, and be in charge of black folks. And with black folks being extremely smart, if they get the same opportunity, they're going to succeed. And they start getting those positions. And white folks that were out educationally just couldn't take it anymore. So they start drinking, smoking dope, doing all kind of opioid type stuff, getting high and committing suicide, living in camps and sleeping in buggies in the forest, in the woods, all around Jackson and other places throughout the country, in New York City, all up and down the streets on both sides in tent. It's because they have lost their ability to say, I am a white person, but I can't supersede and get to the point where my parents want me to be. So I'm just totally useless and worthless. And the black folks and other colors taking my job, my positions, and my women. And I got to do something about it. And they're just losing their minds and they are hurting and suffering. And that's why they need a lot of mental health. They need the government and others and community organizations to put shelters together, mental health programs, job development programs together for all the people that are homeless and get them straight. And this can be done. We have all the resources we need to solve the homeless problem in America. Or they ought to do like some of the towns I'm familiar with in Mississippi. A homeless person can go through the town, but they can't stay overnight. But they can go right across 5 miles into another city and beg for money.
Now, Doc, poor whites and blacks, I don't have to say poor blacks, because if you're black, you're poor.
That's right, in the minds of most.
In the minds of most. Why can't those two groups come together because they have shared experiences?
Sir, that's a good question. And I'm going to tell you what I know from experience and what I've asked the same question to white folks. It's because they can't compete with black folks, and they know it. See, they dropped out of school too. They got hooked on drugs and alcohol. They were abused. Their parents were too poor to channel them in the right direction. And they just did just like the real
Well, why
poor,
can't they come together with black folks that are poor?
That'll be the worst thing in the world. Matter of fact, you will find too many of them committing suicide. Working with black folks, they have been taught all their lives, you're better than black folks. You might be the poorest white person in the world. You might not have anything, but you're better than a black person with a PhD in economic development.
I'll remind our viewers that Chris Rock said that I am very, very rich, but there's no white man in America that would trade places with me.
He was right.
And he made the point that you're making.
But now let me tell you what he could have added.
What?
There will be some that will pretend to trade places with him. And a lot of people don't like to admit, and if you do the research, you'll find that that's what they did during the 1960s. When they started sending those Caucasian freedom riders down through here, a lot of them were agents and spies, and they were reporting to J. Edgar Hoover and others about what was going on, because they were here just for a short while. Now you found them jokers from New York University and University of Michigan and all them other big colleges. They would come down for the summer, stay a few days, and enjoy what was going on, spying back to the government. So Hoover and his boys had all the information on all the black leaders throughout the history of the area from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they targeted those guys, and they planted spies with them in the NAACP, in the Urban League, and other organizations, and they knew what they were doing 24 hours a day. And that's why when they had that thing called that March on Washington, they say, you Negroes can come up here. I'm going to make the agenda for you. Certain people not going to speak, and you got to be out of Washington by sundown.
What are you talking about, Doc? What are you talking about? Somebody made the agenda for us on the March against Washington.
That's a fact.
Oh,
The federal government. Johnson and his boys.
That's hard for me to believe.
Well, that's because you're not a historian, sir. I taught that stuff for years.
Well, I'll tell you this.
But let me tell you this.
I'll tell you this.
You're not going to find it in the books. You're not going to find it in the textbooks now. You have to do that primary research to find those things and go and read some of the Sovereignty Commission's report.
My dad is in the Sovereignty Commission
right.
report.
Right.
They were keeping tracks on him.
Of course.
Back in the 50s and in the 60s.
And you must not know that you're in it too.
Probably.
Ain't no problem in it. I have some of those documents.
They listed his children.
That's right.
My mother sent us out of Madison County, Mississippi, after Emmett Till's murder, up in your part of the country. You know, probably was the event that changed the plight of racial indifference in America, was that one incident. And then you add the 3 civil rights leaders that were also killed. And so, you know, my mom couldn't take it. So she sent her boys and her girls down to Piney Woods. Now, I thought that Rankin County was worse than Madison County, but there was a black man, Lawrence Jones, there that had started a school. And so we all had to go down there. She was trying to keep us alive.
That's right. So it did work.
It did work.
You're still here.
I'm still here, and
Right.
I'm grateful for her today, because I wasn't the kind of guy that was going to follow Martin Luther King's philosophy very well. I was a small man compared to my brothers, and so I learned that I have to hit you first.
And work harder.
And work harder.
Work longer.
Work longer.
That's right.
And so it's grown into my personality to fight back. Now, Doc, I said before we went to break that I was watching the documentary, and the Klans were in the church and they were praying. And I asked the question, were they praying to the same God that I'm praying to? And you said no, or you said yes.
I said yes.
How can that be?
Well, there's one God of mankind. You can call him anything you want to call him. And it's not Jesus Christ. He came many, many years after that time. And the God of mankind that created man, according to certain theories and theses that people have written, and you will find that these men can get away with anything they want because the Bible approves it. I done told you that. It says basically that there's a time for any and everything and a season for it, and you can do anything you want in the world.
It ain't no time in the season to kill a black man.
What is in the Bible? It says there's a time to kill, there's a time to heal, there's a time to love, there's a time to hate. And you can find that, sir, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. I've been preaching this for a long time. Y'all don't like to hear the truth. You all want to pretend the main thing that you need to listen to, and your old preachers talk about it all the time, these 10 commandments. Those 10 commandments are the Caucasians' method of training to get you brainwashed.
No,
out.
10 commandments came from God to Moses up in the
No,
mountain.
no, that's man-made propaganda, sir. You know Moses is not going to be able to go up in the mountains and bring two big old stones down, walking, that been up there for 40 days and 40 nights, tired, wasn't eating properly. You know that's man-made propaganda, but it's good to believe that if you want to do that. I'm not going to tell you not to believe it. It's just not humanly possible. Now, if you say God had something to do with it, you can say that and make yourself feel good. Those stories are written because man wanted to opiate your mind and make you believe that God going to save everybody. He's not going to save everybody. He's going to have us fighting together, hating and killing each other until there are only two people left, and then they're going to pull out something and cut each other's throat or commit suicide. He started with Cain and Abel, sir. There always been fighting and hatred throughout mankind. Even when they had but a handful of people, they was killing each other.
Wow.
That's the work of God and his ability to have seasons and changes for everything. He approves all this kind of stuff because he doesn't want the population to get too big.
What are you talking about, Doc? He approves all of this stuff.
Well, if you a Christian, you say you believe in the Bible, that's in the Bible. I just told you that.
He doesn't approve of us bombing Iran and killing all of those
yes,
people
he does.
over there.
Yes, he does.
He doesn't approve of the slaughter that's going on in Palestine. He doesn't approve of that.
Why you say he doesn't? It's happening, isn't it? When one bomb another, the other will bomb them. They get what they call a peace treaty together, and it doesn't work. Last no more than less than 24 hours. They sign the thing today and bomb each other at night. And then they say, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to kill all your leaders. And now I got them. They can't be competitive anymore. And the next day, those people you think you have bombed to death, striking you back, and the war is continuing. And that's why I told you, sir, we are going to have this war until it turns into part 1, 2, and 3. I've been trying to tell you this now for 10 years. This part now, part 1 and part 2.
So
Part 3.
you're saying we're in World War III.
We're in World War III right now. There are 47 different nations participating in this war right now, full-time and part-time. They have cronies and groups all over the world that are getting rich and making money and trying to get in a position of power and influence all over the world, except in Africa, in the interior Africa. Now, the people up in Northeast Africa are involved, but the black African nations are not. They are still subjects to the European.
I understand that. I understand that there's tremendous progress being made in Africa now that Burkina Faso just moved France out of the country completely. I understand that there's a move to create the United States of Africa.
They've been talking about this for at least 75 years, since independence. Every leader that talked about uniting Africa either died from natural causes or was assassinated. And those leaders that stayed in the government positions, as long as the old presidents, they were stooges for the Europeans, the French, the English, the Belgians, or others. And they were paid to keep the blacks under control. They all got rich. Their sons and daughters got rich. They sent them to the universities in Europe, and especially in London, England, got great educations. A lot of them then married those Europeans and moved back to Africa, and they were reigning as kings and queens. And still,
how is it that so many of our leaders marry outside of their race?
Well, they've been told, sir. I'm just going to have to tell you the truth about this matter. They've been told that if you marry outside your race, your opportunities will be better economically, politically, socially, because if you marry someone's son or daughter, they will tolerate you a little better if you're close to them in appearance and economic status. But if you're a jet black, I don't want you to marry my daughter or my son. If you're totally ignorant educationally, I don't want you to marry my son unless you're a football player or a basketball player. Because they know they're going to take all the money from them. When that daughter's married those guys, they know within 5 to 7 years, they're going to have all the millions of dollars, because those girls are trained when they're in college to get with those guys that play basketball and football, fall in love with them, allegedly, and they're going to marry them and have a child or two, and some of them bold enough to have 3. And in 5 or 7 years, they're going to divorce them, keep the child, get spousal support, the house, the car, insurance, and make about $30,000 a month for extracurricular activities.
Is that what happened to Tiger Woods?
I don't like to call names, sir.
Well, I'd call this name because.
Well, since you called it, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's history. That's history. Now, if you can afford it, it's all right for the individual, but collectively, it's not all right.
So should people that we look up to help save the race or help make life better for those that are less fortunate, should they be a man of one woman of the same race? Like in the Bible, you can't be a leader unless you are a man of one wife?
Well, that Bible says that, but who you know practices that? I was talking to my sister about that. Don't nobody care nothing about what the Bible says when it comes to leadership, especially the religious community. If you listen to Geno Jennings, he's one of the experts in the Bible, and he says if you're a man that's leading the flock, you're supposed to be a man or woman of one husband, one wife, not a divorced husband or wife of 3 or 4. Says you must be able to maintain your home and rule your home, be a leader in your community, be absence of being a drunkard. And most of the preachers you know and I know can't fit that category. And you know they don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just normal.
Well, no, it's not normal.
It is normal.
No, it can't be normal. We have to hold our leaders to certain standards if we're going to make progress. I mean, you cannot have leaders that are uneducated and uninformed and not committed to the uplifting of the people. Now, if you are a leader that has another agenda, then you should be exiled from the community that's dependent upon you.
Okay.
For example,
I'm waiting for that example.
We see too often what happens in racial compositions of 2 different races. When I look at the examples of Clarence Thomas, Tim Scott, those leaders don't seem to understand or don't speak to my heart, to my emotional, my well-being, and I'm not encouraged by that. I don't see that as you being able to say the kinds of things that I need you to say.
Why do you think they're going to say what you need them to say? They're going to say what they want to say. Clarence Thomas is twice as black as you are. Clarence Thomas is looking out for Clarence Thomas. He was raised in a very serious situation economically, and he decided, I'm going to be part of the elite one day. And he said, I'm going to get a good education. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to get me a federal job, and I'm going to be significant and important, and I'm going to make sure I marry properly, and I'm going to do anything I can do to improve myself and get what I want. And if I have to be a turncoat, I'm going to do it, because I want to be famous and rich and have prestige, because I didn't have any when I was born and didn't have any when I was in high school, nor when I was in college.
So is this something that we teach our children, that this is a way to get ahead?
Well, a few parents do, but they won't admit it. they say associate with certain people. Tim Scott is the same. He's a great Republican, black guy, senator, and he is not happy with his situation. And he's planning and scheming. He said, I'm going to be more conservative than Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump told me if I support him, he's going to make me an ambassador or going to give me a Senate leadership position. And he might even let me run for vice president. None of that's going to happen.
Now, Doc, I don't want to appear to indict leaders that have to go inside and work. I mean, we need black folks in the Republican Party.
Of course,
we
of
need
course.
black folks in the Chamber of Commerce. We need black folk in the state legislature. We need all of that. We need black folks on the inside, and we need black folk that are agitating on the outside.
Of course, of course.
But they ought to understand that they're working for the same thing. They don't get lost in the transaction and for personal gain, for self promotion. They can't get lost and caught up in there. I mean, that's the story of Moses. I mean, you can't get caught up living as someone that you are not, because ultimately that's not going to work.
Well, they think so. They think it's going to work. Now, look at Clarence Thomas, for instance. He's making a lot of people happy other than black folks.
Right,
Scott, Tim Scott,
right,
and a few other so-called blacks
right.
that want to be on the other side of the coin, which they have a right to be if they can hang in there. But they're not going to get what they think they're going to get. Now, Clarence Thomas is in a position where he's not worried about anything because he has a job for life. And if he can be forced out of office, if they want him forced out, all we got to do is call them together in a private meeting and say, well, we're going to say, Tom, it's about time for you to have a good reason to leave. It's your health reasons. Your wife is sick, and you need to just step down. Just go on and resign. We'll place somebody in your position in about 6 months, and it's time for you to go.
Doc,
He's not going to change not one iota of the opinions that he's had since he's been planning to be on the Supreme Court.
we're run out of time. I want you to try and share with our viewers who were 3 of the greatest black men in America. Oh,
Okay, I could do that with ease.
go ahead,
Frederick Douglass,
Frederick Douglass.
Marcus Garvey, and the other one is hard to mention because there are several of them. And I would say Brian Rustin. He was a civil rights advocate, one of the smartest men during the 1960s, but he had a little flaw in his life, and he had to sort of stay in the background. Smart man. He worked with Martin Luther King and Young and all them other boys, helped plan the March on Washington. He was a great compromiser. He was a negotiator. And he was a man that had great ideas. And since he couldn't be on the front page all the time, he would give that information to Martin Luther King, Charles Evans, and others, Medgar Evers, and Ralph Abernathy, and many others. He had a few little problems, allegedly, that I'm not going to talk about.
Doc, we'll run out of time, but they don't teach civics anymore in schools. In Mississippi, they've banned the teaching of Black history. And so if you want to get any knowledge about, where we came from, where we are, and maybe where we're going, then tune in to this show. We're on every Monday at 5:30 in the afternoon. So we look forward to you joining us. Doc, any final comments for our viewers?
Most certainly. I want people to understand that if you want to get ahead economically, politically, and so forth, you got to get the proper education and training, put emphasis on work readiness, ladies and gentlemen, and teach that to your children. Forget about all those fake degrees that you're going to get at these colleges. You need credentials that are going to get you a job that will pay you a livable wage up to $175,000 a year. And you can do this if you get in these programs that's going to help you do that. You must get credentials to do something that's going to get you in a position where you can live without begging. You will love yourself better. You will live longer. Your children will do better. And you don't have to worry about paying a tithe in church, because you're not going to get nothing for that.
You heard it right here on We Believe Digital Broadcast Network. Until next time, stay safe and good night.